Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Great to see all of you. We'll just wait for one more minute and then we will start. So I hope the screen is visible. Okay. So again, a very good morning to all of you. And my name is Dr. Ria Das. Those who do not know us, and we are all part of Emojar. My team is also here: O3, Roshmija, Ragini, and Tista. So today's session is basically a part of, again, art-based CBT, which we had been discussing last day also. It was more to do with CBT-based techniques. Okay, this also is a very popular method of understanding anxiety through CBT write-ups. But again, we'll try to incorporate a few art techniques where we'll understand how anxiety affects us and what we can do about it. So we'll try to make it a little bit more interesting. This technique would be much more helpful for people who are stuck. They don't want to write, they're facing blocks, those are not opening up. For them, this would be pretty useful because you're infusing a lot of art techniques into the entire procedure of CBT. Sometimes CBT can become very monotonous because you'll be writing a lot, thinking a lot. Just to break that monotony and to bring more clarity, we take to this method. If any questions about art-based CBT, you can ask right away. I'll just recapitulate of what I discussed last day. Any questions? Anything related to art-based CBT? Okay, we'll take the questions further if no one has at this juncture. Okay, before describing anxiety, I would like a response from your end as to what you feel anxiety is. Or maybe all of us at some point of time or the other, we have experienced anxiety at varying degrees. Maybe not a full-blown anxiety attack or certain phobias, but yes, we have experienced certain physiological as well as psychological thought processes related to what we call is anxiety. We keep on saying that I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling nervous. So someone writes Parky writes butterflies in the stomach. Yes, that's the most common one. Anything else?
Ma'am, I just have a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, how can we differentiate anxiety and nervousness?
Okay, anxiety is much more prolonged and much more intense. We'll come to
Okay.
that part. I'll just discuss briefly.
Sure,
But
ma'am. Yeah.
nervousness is a short-term thing, more specific. Okay, about certain situations or people. It's more of a situational thing. Fatigue during the day, okay, and worrying at night, okay, very good. Overthinking, catastrophic thinking, and worrying. Catastrophic thinking is more to do with a lot of worries. You think the most dreadful thing might just happen. During exam, we get all anxious. Absolutely, we get anxious, and then we have insomnia. Yes, okay. So more or less, we see these are the symptoms of what we called anxiety. But to define it, it's more to do with intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. That's more generalized in a way. There can be specific things also which we are worried about. Uh, the physiological symptoms would be fast heart rate, rapid breathing, constriction. You feel constricted. There'll be a lot of profuse sweating, shivering, and feeling tired. Someone wrote that we feel fatigued during the day. So these are a few uh, ways of defining anxiety. These are the symptoms which wholly defines anxiety. Now, other common symptoms may include nervousness, restlessness, tension, headaches, sweating, profuse sweating, and a shrinking feeling in the heart, then loss of appetite, sleeplessness, insomnia, what we call, having trouble, eating, sleeping, or doing the daily chores, and an inability to control worry. Okay, it's not possible for us to control the catastrophic thinking patterns which we generally engage in during anxiety. A lot of gastrointestinal problems where you feel like visiting the washroom more often, or uncontrolled bowel movements, vomiting, nausea. All these things are related to intense effects of anxiety. These are the associated symptoms. And also, I missed out, there can be a prevailing amount of fear inside the person. Now, as per DSM, these are a few categories which we say are of anxiety. First is generalized anxiety, where you feel as if something is going wrong all the time, but you cannot pinpoint a particular issue. Okay, it's more like you're nervous and you're experiencing all these symptoms for a prolonged period of time. Okay, and without any specific reason, you're feeling stressed out for no good reason, you're feeling fearful and nervous for no good reason, but you're still having those particular symptoms which we discussed. Then you have a specific phobia, where you are scared, or there is an intense fear which is uncontrollable about a particular thing, object, or an event. It can be anything and everything. It can be a fear of a sketch pen, to a fear of a hairpin, to a fear of flowers. It can be anything. So that is more specific, and the fear is intense and not under your control. It's beyond your control. Then we have panic disorder, where you have panic attacks. There will be sudden onsets of anxiety attacks or panic attacks, and that is not predictable. The future events may be triggered by whatever you experienced earlier, followed by social anxiety and agoraphobia, where you have difficulty in entering new situations, or you have an intense fear of interacting in the society. Okay, apart from this, you also have PTSD, which is post traumatic stress disorder, and OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, followed by separation anxiety disorder. Okay, these are a few types of anxiety disorders. The most common ones we see is generalized anxiety, followed by phobia and panic. And especially during the pandemic, we have seen that there's an upsurge of these symptoms in almost every one of us. Okay. Okay, now we come to a short case scenario. I won't say a case study, but a scenario where I'll be reading out a conversation between two people, and then we'll move on with it. Okay, there's a couple. Uh, Maybe they are dating each other recently, and then this boy and the girl goes to a shopping mall, a high-end shopping mall, or maybe a hotel, and they want to take the elevator to the 14th floor. So the boy says, "Hey, let's take the elevator." And the girl, clearly looking very nervous and uncomfortable, she says that, "I would like to rather take the stairs, keeping myself fit." So there's a nervous giggle, and she doesn't want to reveal that she's scared of lifts. And then the boy, he looks surprised, and he says that, "Well, it's on the 14th floor, so how on earth would we make it there comfortably? We'll be just very exhausted." And he looks a little bit confused that how can a person, walk up to the 14th floor and talk about being fit. But the girl continues saying that, "I will take the stairs. You go ahead." And she walks away feeling awkward. She's like nervous, and she doesn't want to face the boy anymore. So she just walks away. Okay, so the boy, feeling really weird inside, says that, "Oh, all right." And he takes the elevator and moves on, feeling very confused. Okay, so this is your case situation. Now, based on this, can all of you just point out the 4 Ds which we know about abnormal behavior, the main 4 Ds which we talk about? Okay, so can someone highlight this area? What can be the 4 Ds related to the psychological distress from the case scenario? Someone writes deviance. Okay, great, well done. And okay, danger, dysfunction, absolutely. Danger, dysfunction, deviance. What's the other one? The last one. If you want to unmute, yes, distress. Thank you so much. So Parki gives us 2 and Arushi gives us 2. Great. Thank you so much. So related to this, we know that it's generally qualifying for the disorder which we call phobia. Okay, it's one of the disorders which we call phobia. Now, we saw that deviance, dysfunction, distress, and danger, and also duration. Maybe if it's a prolonged duration one and it's not only a one-time thing, it generally qualifies for a psychological disorder. Even if it's not a psychological disorder, it doesn't qualify for a psychological disorder. If we take under consideration the duration or any other factors over here, we would rather state it as a form of anxiety which the person is going through, or maybe it's the onset of an anxiety issue. So moving forward with this, we call deviance because obviously her behavior was not at par of what we expect. If it was maybe a 2-story or 3-story, building, maybe it would be a normal thing to walk up the stairs. Dysfunction is that she did not take the elevator, but she rather took the lift, which can be physically stressful as well if you go at one point of time. Distress because she was very embarrassed. She was extremely embarrassed of the situation. She was blushing and she was trying to avoid. It was just an avoidance behavior with the person whom she had maybe met a few days back. So she didn't think about all these issues in front of her problem, which was way more bigger. Now, to quickly talk about the CBT model before we plunge into the technique, basically, you need to know these terms. The first one is the trigger, or what led to the problem, what led to that anxiety attack. It was more of the friend mentioning that let's take the elevator, the sight of the elevator, or it can be any other trigger point which the person may be aroused, okay, that alerted the person. Now, the thoughts and the behavior would be that I'm going to be stuck in the elevator. The elevator is not going to work. I'll be trapped there forever and I'll suffocate to death. Okay, so that was the intense fear thought processes or the catastrophic thinking which was going through the person. And that's why the consequence was she totally avoided the entry into the elevator. She did not want to face it. Okay. So these are all related to each other, and it's called the CBT triangle, where our thoughts, feelings, and actions are all interrelated. So if we can change our thoughts, we'll also try to control our feelings and then eventually our actions. So we move on to the particular method. Now for this, what you would have to do is, first of all, we'll go through these, trigger points. This would be called the anxiety mapping. It's more like you are drawing out your geography of emotions. Okay, you're drawing out your geography of emotions in the sense, you're particularly anxiety. What we'll be doing is we have used metaphors here in order to describe the anxiety provoking situation. Even those who are attending right now, even if you don't have anxiety to a large extent, maybe few of us have. In fact, all of us face certain situations where we are very anxious. So we'll think of that situation and then to that context, we'll try to figure out this entire process. So I hope you are all ready with your paper. You just need an A4 sheet and a sketch pen. or a pencil, whichever you're comfortable with. Anything you're comfortable with. Okay. So I'll just discuss it first briefly. If you are confused, let me know. So here's an example of, it's basically a template. It's not the exact thing what you need to do. I'll be discussing one by one and then we'll take it forward. So the first one is the trigger trail. We have named it as a trigger trail, where you have to draw a path which leads to the monster. Here we have that anxiety source. Okay, so the anxiety source is your monster. If we take the example, we'll see that the anxiety source was the elevator, getting inside the elevator. It can be two good reasons. It can be a form of elevator phobia, or alternatively, it can be claustrophobia. Okay, claustrophobia is a fear, intense fear of constricted spaces or small spaces. So it can be both ways. So entering the elevator would have been very difficult for the person. Okay, so in this case, we see the monster here is the elevator. The problem here is entering the elevator. So, and the trigger trail would be the friend mentioning the entry into the elevator or the site of the elevator. Okay, so what we have to do is draw a trail as you see here. I'll just annotate, try to annotate certain areas. So what you can do is maybe have a source somewhere and then draw the trail. Okay, so you'll draw the trail whichever way you want to. It can be a road, it can be a river, it can be anything. So we are going to draw the trail first, and then we are going to draw the source of this thing, the monster, your fearful area. So it can be very different for me, it can be very different for you. Okay, so we'll just quickly write down in the chat box as to what causes us certain anxiety symptoms. Can we have it in the chat? Then I'll know everyone is with me and y'all are listening. So we'll quickly write down. Anxiety source, for me, it is public speaking. My monster is public speaking. Okay, we are doing the anxiety map, Adrita. It's basically what we are scared of. We are just writing off. Scared or anxious or fearful about. Okay, for me, it's public speaking. Okay, a particular relationship, fine. Overcrowding, parents' health, relationships, gatherings. Okay, that causes a lot of anxiety symptoms. Maybe not a full-blown anxiety disorder, but yes, of course, anxiety symptoms. Stage fear, same as mine. Okay, can it be more than one? Of course, but it would be good if you can do different maps for different thought processes, or you can just squeeze in one, because it's going to get a little cluttered otherwise. Enclosed places, pressure, overthinking. Okay, great. It can be more than one. No issues on that. So you have now identified your monster. So anywhere on the page you can draw your monster. Okay. So if I have to draw my monster, it would be like, I also have more than one, but I'm just sticking to the public speaking thing. So it would be, okay, now the monster which you're drawing, draw in context with yourself. Okay. Draw a stick figure of yourself and then draw the monster as per your size. Okay, with context to your size. Say for instance, if I feel my anxiety is very big, I'll draw the monster. I'll try to draw the monster much more bigger than what I am. So this monster, it can be a stick figure. Don't focus on your artistic skills, just draw what you can. Okay, no one is going to judge you on your drawing skills. So my monster for public speaking would be, of course, a lot bigger. There can be more than one monsters also. And it has a very angry face. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it, but yeah. This is the context which I have drawn on the paper. So this is me and this is the monster which I'm facing right now. So I'm going to name my monster something. Okay, so you also name your monsters as per your wish. Do not stress over everything to be perfect. You're just going to scribble over and draw your map, so don't worry about that. So I have named my monster as Bad Beast. I don't know what, but yeah, that's his name, Bad Beast. And this is me. Okay, and now I'm going to draw my trail which led to this. So I'm just going to draw a river rather than a road. So in the river, I guess facing people, standing on the stage and speaking leads to this monster to come up. So this is it. So I'm going to spend some time coloring and focusing on how I feel about the entire situation, because I've recently stood on stage and spoken, and I'll tell you what happened next. Maybe I spoke for half a minute, but then my entire hand and leg was shivering, and my voice also quivered a little in the end, but no one could understand, luckily. So, so I'm going to spend some time coloring the river. You may or may not color, but it's rather you color and spend more time thinking on what exactly happened or what led to that monster to come up. So I'm just repeating for those who just joined in. Um, this monster is your anxiety source, like the entire thing which you're scared of or worried about, or there's a lot of catastrophic thinking or some distress, and followed by what led to the monster to appear. So these are the two questions which you're going to pose to people whom you're doing this on. So it's more like a story. Okay, it's not the CBT where you are being directive and just telling them what you have to write. Okay. Any questions? Anyone wants to ask? Any questions?
I'm in the river. We need to write the thing that led me to that feeling.
Right. It's not
Right.
only the
It's
river.
not only the.
It can be a path also. Okay. It's not necessary that you have to draw a river. I'm drawing a river. It can be a green path. It can be anything which is leading to the particular monster. Okay. For me, it's symbolic of the river. So this one is me. This is the monster, and this is the source which led to the monster. The trigger, basically.
Ma'am, can
Yes.
it be more than one reason?
Yes, of course. It can be more
Okay.
than one. Okay. So you can trace back to the source of the problem also. Um, for me, it can be over disciplining, which led to a sense of being evaluated or never getting a lot of motivation from the school environment. Can also be that what I have discovered over the period of years. Over disciplining, then lack of support from peer group or from the teachers, because environmental factors also play a lot of it to your there can be a lot of contributory factors to your anxiety. The fear of losing someone, it can be a source of insecurity somewhere. So try to figure out what leads to this bad beast. Okay.
So,
I
ma'am,
have
the
named
road itself, is like giving us a hint of what is causing or what has caused the anxiety thing. Am I
the
right?
trigger points. Yeah.
Trigger
The
points. Okay.
causes as well as the trigger points. When you get that anxiety
Yeah.
feeling, those constrictions and all the physiological symptoms, as well as a sense of fear, what is the trigger point, because in anxiety many a times we don't know what is causing that anxiety. So this will give you a clear map of your emotions as well.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so you can spend more time drawing certain things around it. I would encourage you to draw things around in color, because that gives a sense of clarity, and when you are drawing you are engaging in a lot of creative processes. Okay, so that opens up your mind as well. So do encourage people to draw, color out, draw the terrain around. How is it around the river or the monster? Where is the monster standing? How big is the monster as per your context? That will give a lot of clarity when you are working with the client eventually. So for me, the monster is standing on a pile of mud. Um and I'm also standing on a pile of mud, but there's a little bit of greenery around me. But the monster is standing right in the middle of. Okay, so it's not necessary you have to draw it perfectly. Whatever you can symbolize with. So this is first part of the journey. If you want to, you can draw trees. If you want to, you can draw mountains. Anything which symbolizes your terrain. Okay, I'll be taking up a few workshops on art analysis, where you can analyze a few things after you're done with this. Okay, that's the subconscious part. So encourage clients to work on this as much as they want. They want to fill up the page with certain geographical things, you can, because each of them has a symbolization with your unconscious mind. So we'll do that later. For the time being, just focus on this. So I'm pretty much done with the first part. You can also come back and later add details. So if you're done, we'll move on to the next part. So once we are done with the trigger trail, it's called trigger trail because those are the causes which leads to the appearance of the monster. Now, when your monster, ma'am, types of, yes, different types of colors can be done. Colors also have symbolizations. Everything which you're drawing has symbolizations. There's no right or wrong way of doing in art-based therapies. So just let your creativity flow. There's no hindrance in that. We are done with the first two parts. Any questions here? The monster and the trigger trail. You can label it also, the trigger trail as well. You can label that part. Yes, any questions?
Trigger trail means what led us to the river.
Yes. What led us to the monster, not the river. River, again, I'm telling you, I have done river. It can be a path for you. It can be a pavement for you. It can be anything for you. Okay? Something which leads to the appearance of the monster. It's a trail. Okay? So
That
this
means,
is
for you, that public speaking is the trail. Speaking on the stage.
public speaking is basically my anxiety. Okay? And what
Okay.
leads to it is standing on the stage.
Okay, I got it.
It can be different for different people. Okay. Next. Any questions? Any more questions here? Okay. Next one would be a sea of bodily sensation. So what we are going to do now is draw a water body or a sea. Okay. And we are going to work on the bodily sensations. That means what exactly happens physiologically when I'm into this situation, when I'm seeing the monster. For me, it's standing on the stage. What exactly happens? So I'm going to draw the sea maybe this side of the page. It would be rather a pond for me rather than a sea. So this is my area of the physiological reactions which I'll be showcasing. Okay. So I'll just color it out. So it's called the sea of, I've called it sea of bodily sensations, but you can just name it whatever you want to. is just to symbolize this is your part where you are experiencing physiological symptoms, which is a major part of anxiety. Okay, if you learn how to control your physiological symptoms, you'll see half the anxiety goes away. And that's why thus we have the grounding tools which we generally use in anxiety management. So I've colored my sea of physiological symptoms here, and what you're going to write here is all the physiological experiences which you generally went through or go through during the feeling of anxiousness or nervousness. For me, it's like extreme shivering, which was way more extreme than what it is now. So I'll just write down what are the physiological symptoms.
Is there a particular place where we need to write it, or
Yes,
anywhere in
this
the...
one. Within the sea of wherever you have drawn your pond or your sea or your lake or your river, that area you need to write down. Okay.
Okay.
So I've just drawn a huge lake kind of a thing. For you, it can be the sea. Someone else can just have a tiny pond. It depends. So this is my area where I'm writing all my physiological symptoms, which includes, for me, it includes extreme shivering. The voice modulation also goes haywire. Trouble speaking, I would say. And then trouble breathing. So these are the few things which happens. My hands go cold. Another thing which happens is I cannot look at the audience. Okay. So this is very personalized. It will be totally different for you. So these are a few things which happens. And the most troublesome one is trouble speaking and breathlessness. Because I've noticed the moment I start trembling, my hands and legs start trembling, I stop, I hyperventilate and I have difficulty in speaking. So these two are related to each other. So this is what I have identified, the physiological part to my anxiety. This is where I'm facing a lot of trouble. Anyone would like to share at this point? So this is what happens when you're facing your monster, when you're into that situation. Yes?
Ma'am, sometimes I experience palpitations. I think that is one of the. So, ma'am, what is the solution? I mean, on the spot when you have such situations, besides grounding.
Yeah, we'll come to the solution part. There's another free workshop which is coming up for CBT, wholly CBT. So it wouldn't be possible to do the entire thing. CBT is a very elaborate technique.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just focus on the anxiety mapping because this will help you to identify your trigger points and what trouble you're having. Okay, and after which we'll work on what can be the solutions. Okay. What can be the probable solutions? So this is a good technique to start off with your therapy sessions when you're trying to figure out what all things needs to be in place. Okay, it's like in review. You're doing a review. You're doing the mapping of the entire thing, and then you are looking into each section as to where you need to work on. Unless and until you find out your trigger points, you'll never be able to work on a specific part. Okay. So again, spend a little bit of time coloring things out and reflecting on what can be the other things which are related to the physiological part. So this sea of bodily sensation will be wholly to do with your physiological symptoms and nothing else. So be very specific with this part. So when you exactly look into the monster, or when you're facing that, what exactly happens with your body? Okay. See, in anxiety, it's more of a flight response. You want to run away. So all this trembling and um, uh, stop of breathing, breathlessness, constrictions, all this will happen when you are in a frozen state, or in a flight mode with extreme fear. Okay, either you are fearful and you're frozen, you freeze, or you run. Okay, for anxiety. For anger and other things, aggression, it's more of a fight situation. So your fight responses doesn't work. So you'll have different physiological triggers which will happen, or physiological symptoms which surface, and that's the point. That's an alarm for you to know that yes, I'm anxious and I need to do certain first aid in order to control these physiological symptoms. Once the physiological symptoms go away, you're much more in a calmer state to think logically, because if you're in a frozen state and if you're in a flight stage, your logical reason goes for a toss, and that's the time when you can't think logically. Okay, so the first thing in anxiety management is to physiologically calm down your body. Okay, is this part clear? So we are done with the physiological part.
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Very important. This part is extremely important. Spend a lot of time on this. Minute changes in the body can also add up to a lot of stress in the person. Okay, so spend a lot of time working on this. So I'm also done with my part. So this is the map which I've drawn. Moving on to the next part is the behavior bay. So this is the bay area, a smaller area where I'm looking into what can be my behavioral changes. Okay, so what do I do about it? Do I run away, or do I face it, or what do I do? What do I generally do? If in this case of the lift, the elevator case, we see that the person totally avoids it. The person doesn't want to face the lift. So she doesn't know how it's going to feel when she is inside. Okay, whether the physiological symptoms are coming up or not. These are totally unknown to her because she's avoiding the entire thing. Okay. Generally, as I said, the behavioral patterns are mostly to do with avoidance. You don't want to face it. So the Bay Area will be the area where you are writing about the behavioral outputs. What can be the consequences or the behavior related to your fear or your anxiety? What do you generally do after you face the monster, after you understand that you're physiologically getting very weak or off the balance? What do you do? We'll focus on the behavior.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes. Yes.
For me, it's overcrowding of people. So at that place, I try to get rid of that place. Try to run out. So that will be my behavior break.
Yes. Why do you feel this behavior bay is extremely important? Can someone tell me? Why do we need to identify how we behave when we are facing anxiety? Yes, Kosha?
Ma'am, so this will help us to understand that what we are actually trying to avoid. And it is like an insight that we need to work on this area, that the behavior is not appropriate.
Yes. First, appropriate or not, it is something different. First, we'll try to identify and then see whether it's okay to do it or not. Okay. So, for example, stage fright, it's more like I'm not facing the situation, but it did not cause me any trouble when I was in school because it was not required. So, at that point of time, it was okay. Me avoiding the stage, it was absolutely fine because I had no such challenges in order to, come out of it. That did not impact me. But when I got into this particular, this particular profession where interaction is one of the most things, especially workshops and all, it did affect me. So at that point of time, if I had to run away from the situation or totally avoid it, it's not going to help me in any possible way. In fact, it was detrimental for my growth. So that's why it was an unhealthy behavior pattern. Okay, understood? So after you write down, you will understand whether it is healthy or unhealthy way of coping, or whether it's affecting me a lot or not, whether it's affecting or am I distressed about it. Initially I was not, but now yes, I had to face certain things because my job demands me to go up on stage and talk many a times, maybe not always but most of the time. Okay, so that might cause a lot of distress if I am not being able to control it. Many people, those who are distressed about stage, or there is a lot of stage fright and all, they do not take up such professions at all. Okay, so they'll rather do a desk job, 9 to 5 desk job, where there's minimal social interaction. So that's fine, that's okay with them, since they don't have to face anything. The trouble comes when you're facing certain monsters. Okay, so the behavior bay, for me, it would be avoidance as much as possible right now. A lot of times procrastination also, on not taking up responsibility. You need to write down everything in details. And what you need to do is highlight areas where you feel that this cannot go on forever. For me, I don't have any option. I have to work on these two in order to propel in life. If I don't, then I'll be the loser. So I will darken up these two. Whatever I've written, I will be darkening up these two, because these are not helping me at all. Okay, if it's not much of a trouble for you, it's okay. You don't have to face it more often. Say fear of lizards, if I have to talk about, even if you kill the lizard, or you are shooing off the lizard, or someone else is helping you to get rid of the lizard, it's not much of a life threatening situation or a great dampener into your life. Okay, that is controllable. It's not much of a trouble. You can live with that fear or anxiety. But this needs to be rectified. Or whatever you have written, if you feel that some point or the other it needs to be rectified immediately, or it cannot go on forever, you need to darken up the space. Okay. So this is the behavior bay. Are we done? Any questions?
Done, ma'am.
Any questions? So I'm drawing my terrain. I'm trying to draw my terrain. What will be next is my island of thoughts and images. Okay, so I'm trying to draw a grass, greenland around the monster and the river and the two bay areas. But I'll draw the island in the distance. You can draw it any way you want to. Okay, there, that island would be your island of thoughts and images. So just to quickly show you, this would be my island, And this I've drawn a green grassland, and this is my island of thoughts and emotions. Now, what do you do in the island of thoughts and emotions is something where you've written about your behavior. Now you're going to write about what are the recurring thoughts which leads to this feeling of physiological symptoms or all these anxieties. Okay, so what I'm going to write is fear of judgment. If I have to talk about my case, it's more of fear of judgment. People will laugh. So all these are my thoughts which I'll be writing. Okay, so I'll try to either squeeze into that island, or I'll just put an arrow and write down on top. So I'm putting an arrow and writing because I have very little space to write here. So I'll make a big cloud over here maybe, and then write down my thoughts. Judgmental, and then people might laugh. You can write whole sentences, or you can just write words if you want to. Then people might not like what I'm speaking. Poor self-image, very conscious about oneself. So all these are my thoughts. Okay, my catastrophic thinking would be people will start laughing. I might just, stop talking. I might not find my voice. These are my insecurities which goes on. So find a bigger space to write here, because you'll have a lot of racing thoughts in your mind at that point of time. So try focus on an experience, and then try focus on what you were thinking. For people who are experiencing, generalized anxiety or panic attack, for them it's like fear of dying, or fear of losing it, or fear of extreme pressure. So all these things might come up in your thought processes. Okay. So again, it's a very individualized experience and thought process. I'll just color my cloud a little bit. Again, spend some time working on this. Do not hurry up. Let the person seep in and understand what all other thoughts are there. If they say that yes, it's finished, then you probe them to inquire further, introspect further into the thought process. So spending a lot of time writing this down and also working on the other areas. So this is my island of images and thoughts. Images in the sense, what do you experience when you are, like what all images come in front of you, like fear of death, I'm dying, or people are laughing. These are the images which comes out, or I visualize myself not speaking, not finding my voice, or my voice is quivering and people can't understand and they start laughing. These are the things which come up, fear of being judged extremely by others. So if required, ask the person to close their eyes and reflect on a situation, and then try to figure out. Even for some, when you are trying to visualize the entire situation which you were into, you'll see it's causing a little bit of breathlessness, or you are getting that anxiety feeling as if you're reliving the entire situation again. This is a very common symptom, because that would be again a trigger point for you. So you can always go back and write down near the trail that even remembering situations might cause the monster to again come back. Okay. So I'm just finishing off a little bit of more coloring this side. Coloring will always help you to focus, and allow a lot of creative images to come up and make you think more clearly as to what exactly happens. Again, it might not be a technically proper drawing, but as far as it makes sense, it's absolutely fine. So this is how my map looks like for the time being. So islands,
Which colors do you use?
yes,
It's so
Agrita?
nice. Which colors do you use? Which crayons?
Which crayons? I'm using these wax crayons, plastic crayons. It's easier to handle, it doesn't smudge and all, and very easy to color. You can use pencil colors also, but avoid using paint because then you need to dry it out and then write down. So it's going to take a long time. Use plastic crayons or simple pencil colors where you can write on. Okay. All right, so we move on to the next factor, which is called the maintaining factors. That means over here, the situation is you're trapped in the island. Okay, so island means you are within a water body, if we talk about this, and you are trapped here. So, what is making you trapped here? That means this is happening for a very long period of time. You cannot come out of your thought processes, and that's why you're not even changing your behavior. Okay, you are avoiding the situation again and again. So what are the factors which is maintaining your fear or your insecurity? Okay, so think about it and then write it down. Maybe on the island you can write down that these are the factors which are maintaining my anxiety. I'm not doing anything about it. It's not improving over a period of time. Okay, so one major thing can be your flight responses, that you're not experiencing it at all, or it might be that you don't have any support, or you don't know the tools through which you can manage your anxiety. So identify that. Either you're not seeking help, or you're not identifying what's the problem, you're not understanding what leads to the problem, or you are just avoiding it wholly. Okay, for me, if I have to write at this juncture, it would be more of exposure, because I have worked through this. To an extent, I'm successful, but there's still a little bit of processing left. So for me, it would be more exposure. And that's why, since I'm not exposing myself to the stage more often, might be that thing is remaining with me, that anxiety is remaining with me, even in the smallest forms. Okay, so my maintaining factor or remaining stuck in the island would be that. For you, it will be different. So I'm again putting another box here on top and writing requires more exposure. So these are the maintaining factors for me. The last part to it, in your entire mapping, the last part to it would be what all strengths and weaknesses you have, what all resources you have in the island in order to kill the monster. Okay, so what all things you need to do in order to build that bridge to face the monster and get rid of it. Okay, you need to kill the monster. So everything is in your island of thought. Okay, what are the resources, what are the support systems, what all things can you do? Everything is on this, and you need to build something in order to reach the monster and then kill it forever. So your goal of the entire journey or the entire map which you have drawn is to kill the monster eventually. Okay, so you identify what all things you need to build the boat. In this case, what all things you need in order to overcome your fear and anxiety. Okay, for me it would be more exposure. It can be a support, a positive feedback, maybe more rehearsals, or facing the situation more often. So all these situations can lead me to kill that anxiety, whatever is remaining. You may not be successful in one attempt, so you have to go to and fro to the island to collect resources, spend some time, brainstorm, and then come back again. Okay, so the second part, what you can do is, this island you can elaborate on a different sheet of paper altogether. So what you do is draw a water body and an island, and then work on all the resources which you have. Say for instance, when I'm feeling anxious, who all do I have as my support system? Okay, so identify the people, because in school also, where I work, I ask children, when you're facing anxiety attacks, identify at least one person who can act as a first aid provider, because they need to calm you down. The physiological symptoms need to calm down first. So identify people who can help you in times of crisis. That can be one resource. Identify what the sources were, first of all, and why you need to change these thinking patterns. If I have to talk about mine, maybe lack of support or over disciplining, or maybe being judged all the time, I can rework on this thought process, change my thought processes, and then maybe start feeling better, maybe through affirmations or daily quotes or certain restructuring of my thoughts. Okay, so those are the tools which I'll be needing for this. Okay, whether you have certain help available, whether you are psycho educated about anxiety attacks, what are the first aid you need, all these things will contribute to building your bridge or building your boat. Okay, and to kill the anxiety, lot of exposure is required. More often you need to be exposed to the anxiety provoking situation, which we call flooding, and most of the time it's erodes over time. Okay, so it's like a constant attack on the anxiety monster, and then one fine day the monster is so weak and feeble that it doesn't function anymore, and you come out of your anxiety wholly. Okay, so this would be your target behavior. Whether you want to escape or not, it's absolutely up to you. But again, the behavioral consequences, that particular bay, the behavior bay, you need to clarify, you need to introspect in order to come to a conclusion whether this particular set of escaping behavior is helping me or not. If not, then what can I change in my island? What can I change? What all things can change in my island in order to provide me with the useful resources? Okay, so Kosha was talking about what are the tools apart from the grounding techniques, what can be the other tools. Okay, so all the tools we'll be eventually learning. This one workshop will not help. So in the next series, we'll talk about a few techniques where you can control your anxiety. Okay, and get rid of it. Yes, someone is asking questions. Vitika, yes, tell me. I can't hear. Yes, someone wrote that, ma'am, it's can it be some question which we ask ourselves at that moment? Yes, of course. You will have to write those down also. Why me and why not she? Or why am I the victim? Why am I suffering? All these things can obviously come up, and you can write it down very well. Okay. Maintaining factor is what is not causing you to come out of that anxiety. What are the things which are letting you remain in that? Maybe not seeking help, not knowing what anxiety is, or not understanding what can be my resources in order to help me out. Okay, say for instance you have stomach ache, you know that you are facing distress, but you're not doing anything about it. You need to go walk up, take a glass of water, and take some medicine in order to feel better. Okay, so if you don't get up, that's your maintaining factor, that the stomach pain is not going away. For anxiety also, if we just leave it and it just comes and goes as per as per the situation, and we are not doing anything about it, it remains with us throughout. So what are the tools which are missing? What am I not doing in order to come out of that situation? Yes, I'll send the picture of my map. I'll put it up on Instagram and Facebook. You can just check it out. Okay. More examples, it would be good if you can also send it in our Telegram group or wherever you are, in your WhatsApp group also. You can just maybe mail us and then we can put it up as a reference. That would be great.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello. Bolo.
Actually, I do want to share one case. I'm thinking that anxiety mapping can help that person, so I'm not sure. So, can I share the case with you?
Sorry, I didn't get your questions. You want to share what?
A case study
Okay.
of a
Yes,
person.
yes. Of course. Of course. You want to discuss now or you want to send me separately?
Uh, Anyway, like I can share it now as well.
Okay.
So it's a 22-year-old patient complaining of ghost dreams, and around 1:30 to 3 a.m. once or twice a week, he's scared from that time. He's very scared of ghosts, but talk about them to find the topic interesting, and he's curious. One thing,
About ghosts.
yes.
Okay.
One thing common in every dream is he teleports in every dream. Location may be different or goes too, but he mostly teleports in each dream and family is mostly there in his dream. While he teleports, he thinks ghost is torturing him in his dream, in the dream, and his mom says to not think about it in the dream, so he tries to wake up in reality. He also experienced deja vu at times and believes that there are dimensions and people like us are living their own lives there. But he's scared. So I think that it leads due to because of anxiety and extreme stress. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that anxiety mapping can help him. I think
Uh,
so.
do you think that he is going through anxiety symptoms? The physiological, think about the physiological symptoms as well. Okay, because otherwise it becomes a different case altogether. See, him waking up, it can be a mother figure issue also. Because if there's an overindulgence of the mother figure, there's a constant worry or the constant, you know, case of being always having a support system, being over dependent on the mother figure. So, first check that out. And also check the physiological symptoms. You can very well do this. Okay, you can very well do the anxiety mapping, the entire thing, and see whether the symptoms are very grave or not. Okay,
Okay,
sometimes
ma'am.
it also happens due to interest we take to a particular subject which is anxiety provoking. So that can be a maintaining factor for him. And his constant support system from the mother or over dependence on the mother can also surface in such dreams.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
And figure out first through this. You can always do this. See, this is for everyone. It is not only for a person who's going through anxiety attacks or certain psychological distress related to anxiety. It can be done with anyone to figure out where your anxiety points are and what can you do exactly about it. Okay, we all face anxiety at varying degrees. Okay, so it depends.
Okay, ma'am.
Vitika wants to ask a question. You may just go ahead, ask,
Yeah,
please.
thank you. So, Ria, like you, I also have the stage fear, and I'm a storyteller, and at times I have to face audience. And
Right.
when with children, I still feel better, but when it's the adults, I again have these judgment issues where people would be
Right.
judging me or making, if I make a fault, people would be laughing or something like that. So I've
Right.
tried to work with, I have gone to the root cause also, why this has led it all together. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I've worked with it, but it keeps coming up. Like I've not been able to deal with it completely. Even before going for an interview, I feel that anxiety, I will stop eating and I can't drink even a glass of water also. It becomes, as soon as I finish that, then I'm already all fine. But
Right.
before
Right.
that, it becomes a mess for me. And if it is like later half of the day, the entire day I can go without food that day. I've been working on it, but still not, not completely able to get over this anxiety.
Okay, see, these are the physiological symptoms which are automatic. Our nervous system caters to that more often because it's used to that kind of arousal. Maybe whatever childhood factors you had, it's used to that arousal system. Okay, so it's once you start controlling your physiological symptoms, you will see it's way more better. Management of anxiety is way more better. Okay, so focus on your sea of bodily changes. See what all changes happen when you're facing this. As you said, that days before an interview or a presentation, I get very nervous and jittery about things. So, what all physiological symptoms happen, and what are the tools which I can, incorporate in my island where I can build my boat properly. And for anxiety, the most effective technique is exposure. So the more you expose yourself, the better it will be dealt with. The anxiety fades away eventually. So you
Yes.
need to attack the anxiety more often.
Yeah, like pre-COVID times, it was still better because I was facing the audience regularly. But
Right.
then again, those 2 years have
Right.
gone back to the shell, and again going back is a task now.
Absolutely. So take small things. As I said, you cannot kill the monster at one go. Okay. You
Mhm.
might have all your resources. The monster depends on what's the size of the anxiety. So the bigger the monster, the more difficult it is. So you keep on going to and fro and hitting the monster more often. So
Mhm.
it's the same thing. You can build small tools. You know, you can have small exposures in order to get rid of your anxiety.
Okay.
Okay, so taking small steps will help you eventually to tire out the anxiety monster and then eventually kill it.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
always remember that exposure is the key. The more you expose yourself, the better it would be.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you can always work or elaborate on your island because that's where you're keeping, that's the storehouse. And why an island? Because it's safe, you know, the water covers you. It's a safe zone for you. So don't worry that if you are faced with certain difficulties, also you have resources in order to take shelter for the time being. Okay, so what all things you need there in order to keep yourself safe.
Okay. Thank
But
you so much.
also remember that the island, you have to survive in order to, you know, move on with life. So if you're stuck in the island, it's more like a stagnation. You'll not be able to venture out anywhere.
Yes.
So you need to work on it gradually.
Ma'am, does systematic desensitization also is
Yes.
related to exposure?
Yes, of
That's
course.
yeah.
Okay. That's exposure therapy, but in a very small way. As I told ma'am, you have to expose yourself a little bit and then increase the intensity. So you'll get used to it. Okay. So I guess we are done with today's workshop. So the next workshop, this is another example which is there. You can just maybe take reference from here. There are a lot of other things which you can incorporate in your island when you're working. Okay. And this is the CBT worksheet which we have transformed into this. Okay. So you have feelings of anxiety, that's the monster. You have your bodily sensation, that's the C. The trail, which you have the trigger points. The thoughts and images is your island. The strength and resources are the things needed for you to build a boat. And the behavior is the bay of behavior which you're using. Okay, the previous slide, yeah, this is. I'll send you the PPT when we are mailing your certificates. Okay, so you'll have a ready reference. See, again, this looks very blank as compared to this because this makes you feel more energized and more enthusiastic about the entire thing rather than only writing things. Okay, so you can incorporate this with even younger children who would rather prefer drawing with colors and making a vibrant map of their behavior rather than only working on whatever is there in the screen. So this is a typical CBT worksheet which we have transformed into this. That's why the art-based CBT worksheet which we are working on, and it's gradually picking up pace because it's way more interesting and good to look at as well. Okay, and we have another free workshop on essentials of CBT. We'll be announcing the dates soon. It's most probably on the 26th. So you'll get to know a few more strategies. We'll come up with a lot of strategy building for anxiety because we think that anxiety is one thing which we need post-COVID as well. So any questions? Otherwise, we'll call it a day and we'll meet soon. Thank you so much for all of you joining in, and this will be added to the YouTube channel. So please pass on the message. Okay.
Ma'am, do we need to fill the form for that certificate again that is sent on the
No.
email?
Only once. Only once.
Thank
We'll
you.
send you the certificates by say 25th. Okay. Yes,
Hello.
of course, adult clients will also love doing this. Okay, I would like to know how you all felt doing it. Good. Thank you.
Ma'am, it was self-reflective.
It's more to do with self-reflection and starting off with the session.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Tell.
Hello, and good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Actually, my question is that my intuitive nature gives me anxiety. You
Okay.
know, I, I, I mean, what can I say? It is an inbuilt quality in me from the childhood that I get intuitions about the
Right.
happening, which is going to be happen in the future. So that is why I become very anxious and become
Right.
I
Fearful
feel
about
helpless.
moving.
I feel helpless that
Right.
whether I should take action or whether I should move forward to do something or not. I mean, this gives me very much stress on my mind. How should I
Right.
overcome
See, how should you? It's better to focus on your island of thoughts here.
it? Okay.
Okay. And island of thoughts, try to gauge each one of your thoughts. Like take one thought and try to unfold what it is leading to. So this is
Mm-hmm.
something where you need to focus on. We'll again, it will not be possible to discuss the entire procedure in this workshop. So we'll try to come up with a few more where you can more clarify on that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So, but focus on your island of thoughts
Okay.
because your head space, it's more of your thought is more to do with your spatial, the space area. It's
Mm-hmm.
more of a free flowing thought. So, grounding exercises will also help you to calm your nervous system.
Actually, things are also happening. I mean, what I find, what I get intuition happens in the future. Most of the times, not
Okay.
always. I don't say 100%, but yes, the results are there. So I
Right.
get intuition in
Yeah.
advance only,
Yeah. So
and I
that is what the maintaining factor is. The maintaining factor, which is not letting you get rid of your anxiety monster.
yeah.
Okay, so try to figure out how many times it has happened. It might be a coincidence also. So go by numbers now, more of a logic here, rather than just going with the flow and trying to figure out that every time this happens. Okay, we have a tendency that once it happens and then we generalize the entire situation,
No,
or
I'm
we
not generalizing or overgeneralizing. Actually, it is happening. It is happening in my
yeah.
family also, with my children also, my husband also. मतलब if I say yes, and मुझे पता था, मैंने आपको बोला था कि this will happen, and it happened. And also realized कि yeah, Mama was right. What she was saying, she
Right.
alerted me. हाँ,
So some people are also gifted with this intuitive nature. So rather than worrying about it, take it as a gift. And we'll try to restructure our thought processes so that you can, lessen your anxiety. So we'll talk about it some other day, ma'am. We'll come up with a workshop on that. We
okay.
we
And
have this free workshop which is coming up on CBT. So
okay.
there also it will
And
be.
today, are we starting with the advanced in this
Yes.
thing, health psychology? Okay. And what materials should be there?
Ma'am, we'll post it in the group.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks a lot.